So, yep, go ahead, take it away.
All right. Thank you, Sean. Welcome, everybody. My name is Karen Doster-Greenleaf. I'm the Director of Research and Instructional Services at Kennesaw State University. And I'll let my co-presenter introduce herself.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Chen. I'm the Director of Systems and Online Services from Kennesaw State University Library. Today, Karen and I are going to present Lean Library for Kennesaw State University. In this presentation, we're going to cover why Lean Library, what is the Lean Library, how does it work, and its pros and cons, our promotion and the users' feedback. Why Lean Library? I'll give a brief introduction on why we choose Lean Library. Like all the academic library, the usage of library resources is an ongoing challenge. We analyzed our digital collection usage for a period of 2021 to the end of 2022. We found only 24% of usage. So we asked ourselves how we could maximize the exposure of our resources and increase usages. We wondered, where do students start their research? Quite a few literatures suggested that students still prefer to begin their research, use Google or other search engine. So we began an exploratory project to identify technologies that would connect our resources to users at their natural point of entry and will increase e-resources usage and reduce numbers of clicks and promote library awareness. That is how we discovered Lean Library. So what is a Lean Library? Lean Library is a web browser extension by Sage Technologies. This tool received the Charleston Most Impactful New Product Award at Charleston Conference in 2021. Lean Library streamlines access to the library digital collection from anywhere, any search engine, such as Google Scholar, PubMed. It will tell you when the library can give you free access to an article or ebook. If materials are not available, it will direct you to request an interlibrary loan. Lean Library supports the following browsers: Google Chrome, Safari, Firefox, Microsoft Edge, and Opera. How to download Lean Library? KSU faculty and the staff and the student can download the extension from KSU library website, library.kennesaw.edu, or directly go to vendors website, www.leanlibrary.com/download. Now I will turn to Karen and she will demonstrate how the Lean Library works.
Thanks, Lee. So one of the first things that we're going to touch on is what does it look like to download the extension? And as Lee just mentioned there, we have provided 2 entry points for our users at KSU. On our library website, we had a banner. We've now moved it to like a little tile on our website, but essentially it directs the user to this picture that you see on the screen right now that provides a little bit of background about what the library is. And based on the browser that they're currently using, so in my case, I'm a Chrome user constantly. So you'll see here the image says available for Google Chrome, and you click on the download button, it automatically downloads and is added to Chrome as a web extension. I have a couple, so it's one of like 3 or 4 that I've got on my, and it shows up on your taskbar, and we'll show that in just a second. But in addition to downloading the extension to your web browser, there is an authentication or institution identification process. Many of you are probably familiar with this in Google Scholar, where you go and you identify your institution. Lean Library works in a very similar way due to the fact that there is an authentication process that needs to be conducted, since the purpose of the extension is connecting our users from their point of entry to our actual holdings. And so once the user has downloaded the extension, this settings box will appear. They will select the institution. Obviously, only institutions that are subscribing to the interface are in that drop-down menu. But I still like to tell students, scroll down so you'll see your institution. They select Kennesaw State. You'll see that there's 2 boxes under the select your library: automate my authentication and then show timer. It defaults to have both of those options selected. I do let any user that I'm working with know that you do want to maintain the automate my authentication because it continues that seamlessness. It minimizes the clicks, because having to constantly authenticate every time you want to access one of our resources would kind of diminish the impact and the usefulness of the extension. So we want to keep that one. However, the show timer when extension will close automatically is up to the user. I actually have turned this off for myself because the timer isn't as necessary. But some people like to know when the extension may be interacting and may automatically turn off or not. So it's up to the individual user, but then you can select save and your settings are set and you're good to go. So there are some things to consider or to be aware of when using Lean Library, and this is specifically tied to how Lean Library is activated and what it's doing when it's interacting online. And so this first screenshot that we have, which is Lean Library inactive. So once the extension's been added to your web browser, you'll see that there's this little LL icon in a circle. That is your Lean Library icon, and it shows up in your toolbar. Now, if any of you are Outlook users, you can probably tell from the screenshot that this is our Outlook Online webpage. And so what Lean Library is essentially telling you, that little icon is telling you, is that it's inactive. You're on a website that Lean Library isn't capable of interacting with because there's nothing tied to our resources. There's no materials to be engaging with. And so that's what it means when it's gray. Now, when it's this coral kind of orangey pink color, this means that the extension is interacting with a vendor website. And usually what will happen is an assist message will appear that will guide the user to our subscription or our ILL, or it's telling you, it's like, hey, we've noticed something we can assist you with. And then when it turns green, it means that you're now on the institution's e-resources site. So you're in a database, you're in your ebook holdings, but that icon is telling you, like, you have made it to that piece of information that you are trying to gain access to. So what this looks like in practice is based off of the research that Lee has done and some other individuals in the literature, a lot of our users are still going to Google. It tends to be their entry point. And so we wanted to show what that would kind of look like. And so if a student were to use Google to start their research process, you'll see here in the upper right-hand corner that Lean Library icon is coral. So it's noticing, like, hey, you're on a website that we can start interacting with and helping you with. Now, the first thing that any user is going to have to do is authenticate their first time. Usually, especially if you're working off campus, but if you are working on campus, you authenticate once. And if your system is set up to remember authenticate individual IDs authentication, this should only have to happen once, but you'll click on that library, take you to the library link. They'll ask, whatever system you've got set up, the user will authenticate and then they're good to go. So your user has conducted their search. Maybe they went from Google to Google Scholar. One of the really nice features of Lean Library is this direct to database option. And so you've done your initial search, you found this article either through Google or through Google Scholar, and you're like, yes, this is what I want. And so what will happen is that assist message will pop up and say, hey, we have access to this article, because more often than not, the links in Google Scholar are going to take your users to the vendor page. And so the assist message tells the user, say, hey, we know there's a paywall, but guess what? Your library has access to this article. So if you click on that access article button, it then takes the user directly to that article in the database. They're not taken to a results page. They're not taken to the database itself. They're taken directly to that article, which, as Lee mentioned earlier, minimizes all those excessive clicks, all that excessive redoing of their search process once they're within our subscribed databases. You can have it set up to open in a new window or tab. We have it opened up in a new tab. And once your user has done that initial authentication, there's no additional login required. It really maintains that seamlessness. The other way that our users can interact with Lean Library and gain access to information is through direct vendor websites. We've found that it usually happens more often with newspaper websites. Sometimes it works with the journal articles, sometimes not. But within the vendor website, Lean Library can also trigger awareness that, hey, we have access to this information and we can get you straight in. And so you'll see here on these screenshots, the assist message pops up with access to the AJC or access to the Marietta Daily Journal. So again, there's a lot of different interfaces that Lean Library can work with. Now, this interlibrary loan item or option with Lean Library is personally one of my favorite. I work with a lot of faculty and a lot of graduate students. And so what Lean Library can do for our users, if they have done their search and they found this article they really want to use, as you see here, you're on Science Direct, but we don't have access to it. The library actually does not have this in our holdings. What you can do with Lean Library is set it up to direct that user to your interlibrary loan. And so by clicking on that link, since the user is already authenticated, it takes them directly to the request form. Lean Library will automatically fill all of that information. So the article title, the publisher, the authors, all of that information. So all the user needs to do is click submit. Now, unfortunately, this doesn't work the same with books, and we'll get to ebooks in just a second, but in relationship to journal articles, it's a huge time saver, and it's a really nice feature with Lean Library. So talking about ebooks, Lean Library does also interface with Amazon and other ebook vendors. Now, I want to reiterate, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, that it is specifically ebooks. So, but say, for example, a student is looking for recommended reading or required reading material for their class. So they go to Amazon and they do a search for it. Well, if we have that book available as an ebook in any one of our collections, Lean Library will then generate an assist message that tells the student or user to say, hey, we've got an ebook alternative, and provide a link that will take them directly to whatever collection holds that particular item. It completely bypasses the OPAC and the catalog record, just takes them directly to that resource. So this last feature, email notifications, it's sort of like a special option, but it is an available resource, particularly for anybody who's working with faculty or graduate students that are generally pulling their information from one particular periodical. So you'll see here on the screen that there's a subscribe to TOC. This is essentially like an RSS feed for a specific journal article that is then sent to the user's email address. So it's just an added feature. It shows up in Google Scholar primarily, but it's a nice little resource for anybody that's working with specific journals. So next, we'd like to talk about the impact that Lean Library has had for us at our library. And so the first thing that we want to talk about is to really have any sort of impact on campus and then subsequently on our usage. What's the promotion of Lean Library? This is something that's very, very important because usage of the extension requires people to know that it exists, how to access it, and then how to download it to their own device. And so last fall, We did a big promotion rollout. We used our newspaper, or not newspaper, sorry. We used our newsletter, the Wall Street or the Stall Street Journal, to promote it. You'll see there in the middle that there's an image that and a little bit of a blurb along with a QR code that took the user directly to the download page. We also had social media posts that were encouraging our users to access it. So it's really important that you get the word out because that's what's going to drive adoption of the resource. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Lee to talk about the positive impacts on our usage.
Thank you, Karen. I will talk about the advantages and limitations of Lean Library. The significant positive outcome of Lean Library is it simplifies access to library digital collection with much fewer clicks and less time. We got a positive feedback from users if they installed Lean Library. What I mean simplifies access and reduce clicks is that people can directly search article, ebook from Google, Google Scholar, or Amazon. Lean Library will direct it from there to our collection. If we do not have the collection, interlibrary loan form will populate from Lean Library. One unique feature of Lean Library is a sys message. This feature saves researchers money with overcome paywall issue. Karen has showed a sys message from AJC website. We subscribe AJC from ProQuest. However, patron would naturally go to AJC website, look for Georgia News or Atlanta News. So it is how Lean Library system message come into play. With a Lean Library system message, when user go to AJC website, the message will pop up and direct the user to the site we subscribe. In our case, it's a ProQuest. Another unique feature is Lean Library access to ebook through Google Scholar, and Amazon. This feature is not available with other similar tools, such as LibKey or LibKey by Browsing Library, or Passport browser extension by EBSCOhost. After implementing Lean Library, we saw our digital collection usage increased tremendously. We started a soft launch in July 2022. From this chart, we can see our e-resources usage increased significantly since July 2022. However, there are some limitations for this tool. This tool is a web browser extension. It is a user-initiated tools to download, so need user to download, install themselves. So, and also we need constantly promote and instruct the students and faculty to download, install extension in order to enjoy the benefit of Lean Library. Secondly, it only identifies e-resources. The third user need to aware it identifies ebooks by ISBN number. So through Amazon. So if the title is the same, but the ISBN number is different with the multiple editions, Lean Library will not be able to direct to the library collection. So the user need to be aware of it, looking for an item with a multiple edition. Now I'll turn to Karen to talk about the user's feedback.
So we noticed by the graph that Lee shared with you all that we were certainly seeing a significant increase of usage of our resources, but we were also curious to find out what the experience of our users were in relationship to Lean Library, because it is a relatively new technology. And so this past spring, we conducted a survey. We had a small response, about 20 out of the roughly 3,500 current KSU users. But we received some positive feedback that were in line with our objectives of launching this resource, which was it made finding articles easier. And one user said that they liked that we were hosting resources in one spot. Now, the reality is that's not what we were doing, but the fact that it felt like that to the individual was exactly what we were trying to do. We were trying to take down a lot of these barriers. And so it seemed like Lean Library was providing us and the user with that opportunity. Now, unfortunately, because it is a newer technology, there were some respondents that reported some difficulty using ILL, specifically around determining if an item is available full text or not, because there were a couple of instances where Lean Library recognized that we had a holding, but it was an abstract. It was a record for the article because we have some bibliographic index databases, so it wasn't the full text article, but it made the database and Lean Library talking made it kind of seem like we did. That has been very few and far between, but it did happen. And we had some complaints regarding excessive pop-ups, particularly on pages that the user didn't feel like that assist message needed to be there. And so one of the really nice things that Lee and I have had an opportunity to do in this process has been working really closely with Sage Technologies. And so we have had multiple conversations with them on how can we improve things on our end, but also letting them know about these things where they can start making improvements to the technology themselves on their end. So, and one of those is in relationship to the excessive pop-ups. We recognized where that pop-up or pop-ups could be popping up. And Lee worked with Lean Library to rectify that. And so hopefully moving forward, it won't be so much of an issue. And so we are looking at next steps, more particularly doing a second round of the survey in fall of 2023. I'm looking to add a focus group option or like an opt-in option question in the survey, because I'm really interested to have a conversation and maybe actually doing some user testing with our users to determine, it's like, okay, well, you made this statement, what does this look like in practice? And so to also help more adoption, and of course, we've got, a relatively large incoming freshman class this fall semester, we're going to be doing a promotion event because as we mentioned earlier, getting adoption of this does require a significant promotion workload. And instead of doing it just very statically through social media or newsletters or occasional instruction sessions, we're going to do sort of almost like a tabling event. And so we're early stages of that, but that's what we're hoping to do, and hoping that Sage Technologies can provide some promotional materials, some swag to get people interested. We're also looking at potentially upgrading our current instance of Lean Library, which would provide us the opportunity to have that survey pop up. So which would make it a little bit more targeted and hopefully get an increased response rate. Because with the more advanced Lean Library instance, you can add additional items to your assist messages in addition to just like the link to resources. And then I'm also currently working on an instructional tutorial because we have run into a couple of questions in regards to, well, now that I've downloaded it, what do I do? And in regards to interacting with the extension itself while conducting research. So working on that, there's a couple other institutions that have adopted Lean Library that have them. So just wanting to make sure that we have one that's specific to KSU. And if you're interested in learning more, hearing some more specifics about the implementation process, the promotion process, Lee and I were actually just recently published in the Computers and Libraries. Our article is called Lean Library, Using a Browser Extension to Expose Your Digital Collections. We've provided the citation if you guys do subscribe to Computers and Libraries, to go check it out. I noticed we've got some questions in chat for Lee and I to answer, but we also want to open up the room to any questions and answers at this point.
Are we going to the chat by one answer the question?
I would be happy to do that.
Yeah, I can certainly, if you want me to read them out, if that helps.
Sure.
And perhaps some of this has been covered since you all have gone through the presentation, but Jonathan was asking if each library has does each library have steps we can take to configure this so our patrons can use it? And then a sort of follow-up question was is this something that Gil could configure system-wide? Okay, go ahead, Lee.
Yeah, I can say about the configuration. I think each institution can work with Sage technology. They have a configuration form and to fill, and then there are some backend work. And also, I think Gil can help with a lot of part of this, like what e-resources we have and what resources you want put assist message, because it's not all of the e-resources you need to put assist message. So this, I think it should be individual institution consider about that part, but integrate with Alma, that part, I think Gil can help with that part.
Yeah, and it seems like there's definitely some local communication and conversations that you had with your IT department to get it configured as well to be acceptable for an extension on browsers. Is that probably the case?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So, and it does work with all browsers. That's been answered. Are you all, KSU, are you using the free version or one of the paid options?
Paid option.
Paid options. I didn't know that there was a free option. It's not the premium one though, right, Lee?
Yeah, if we only use the Lean Library access. They have a future. Yeah. We think about it later. Yeah.
All right, excellent. Is this mobile friendly? If they're on a small screen device like an iPhone or a iPad, will they see the Lean Library pop up? Has there already been any testing with that?
So it is mobile friendly, but not, it works differently than the desktop version. So instead of it being an extension on a specific browser, the Lean Library Mobile is like its own browser. So it works a little bit differently, but there is that option, if that answers the question.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Mike White was asking, what was the process of providing your holdings to Lean Library? What is your process to keep them updated?
I think as long as the holding, the Alma updated and will reflect the Lean Library. And actually, I found that there are few cases the Lean Library help us to diagnose catalog issue. Some, like our patrons, use the Lean Library and found the discrepancy between Lean Library and our Alma holding, and ended up, we found out our holding is not updated. So as soon as our holding update, it will reflect it in Lean Library.
So I'm going to circle back real quick because I was finally able to get it to, so people can see the mobile option. You do get the pop-up. Sorry, I wasn't able to show it immediately because it takes forever to pop up. There's like a 5-second delay on the mobile option, but the assist messages do pop up when you use the mobile interface as well. But then you also can see right there, you can also see the little icon that shows up as well. So mobile friendly, but not quite as easy to work with on the mobile. Okay. Thanks, Sean.
No problem. I was trying to get my spot again. All right, Joshua was asking, so for example, if you go to a particular article on, say, the AJC's website, can Lean Library then take you directly to that article in ProQuest, assuming that article is already published in ProQuest? Would you make that jump into the database?
For AJC website, as soon as a patron go to AJC website. Now going down to search for particular article, the Lean Library system messages pop up and direct them to ProQuest, and then they can search from ProQuest for particular article.
Yes.
Awesome. Ghost, more.
Oh, I can answer Amy's question in regarding investigating an option for installing on shared computers. So
Yes.
we did go ahead and work with UITS, and it has been downloaded on all of our, at least in the library, all of the lab computers. So any of our students that come in and use one of our desktops in the library, Lean Library is already on there.
Awesome. That was one of my questions as well. Melissa was asking, can you trick the system to recognize, trick in quotations, physical items by adding e-numbers to physical records or setting up a similar system where the match is made, but there's a note that the item's available in the library? Have you all thought of that or tried that?
It's matching by DOI.
Oh, okay.
Or
I don't know
ISBN.
whether physical book has a DOI or not.
ISBN, DOI is the article, ISBN.
Yeah.
So it's connecting. So usually if an E version has a specific ISBN attached to it. And so that's how it's connecting. So unless we can make up, or in the catalog, if we, like, for example, if it's available as an ebook in an Amazon search and we have the book and it's physical, we would have to go in and add that as an ISBN in that catalog record. And I'm not the cataloger. I don't know if that's possible, but to get the system to talk to the catalog that way, they would have to do that.
And on occasion, maybe more than occasion, physical items do have ISBNs somewhere else in the record and vice versa. It's just a matter of the mapping and would it find that other ISBN in the record or not?
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Yeah,
we haven't played detective that deeply yet.
And somebody was curious, Tim Daniels at UNG was curious, have you compared this to Power Notes?
Yes. Lee and I both have compared this to Power Notes. I don't know, Lee, do you want to share your feedback on the comparison?
Yeah, Lean Library is more like exactly match. When I compared, Power Notes is just when they search, they will pop up similar, like a similar topic. They list how many like a title with a similar search, a similar topic subject you search. But Lean Library is exactly the match. You search for particular article, they direct you to that article. Also, Power Note is more for research. Make a note. What is the article and what they are like, how they make a note on that. What is the benefit for that article? What they think that the article, and help them to do what kind of a research or that kind of thing. Karen, can you add more? That's what I basically compared. Yeah.
Yeah, so I attended I think Gil did a presentation on Power Note shortly after we had done a bunch of promotion for Lean Library. And so I was really curious also to possibly see if there was a way to make them work in tandem with each other. And from my own observation, based off of working with students, they were almost in opposition to the extent of like what their goals were, because Power Notes did seem to be more geared towards the overall research, like tracking. So like the note taking and the citation, I thought there were some really cool features to it, don't get me wrong, but in relationship to like connecting to our actual holdings, which was the objective that we had with getting Lean Library, was we really wanted to increase our usage. We wanted to increase awareness. Power Notes didn't really provide that because of that sort of recommended list versus connecting the user directly to the item that they actually wanted to be reading and accessing. So those were the two big distinctions for me personally. There are premium or advanced options of Lean Library that I do start to incorporate some components of Power Notes from the research tracking perspective, but we haven't had the opportunity to explore those yet.
All right, Tim says thanks, and Lucy seconded Lee's explanation of Power Notes as a research organizer first, and then sort of a web plugin as second.
Yeah, is USG still planning on funding Power Notes? Just out of curiosity, because I know that the pilot was supposed to only last a year.
So this is Lucy. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, hi Lucy.
Yeah, so we've committed, and I think John communicated this out, or I don't remember where we did it actually, sorry. But yes, we will be paying for one more year. Usage has not been as good as we'd hoped. So I don't know what we'll do if usage doesn't pick up in this next year, but Power Notes has been taking a more, a higher impact role in trying to reach out to writing centers and places like that that they think would really adopt it. So we'll see what things look like, but we have committed to another year of it, yes.
Okay.
All right, does anybody else have any other questions? Looks like Amy asked about, I would imagine that getting pop-ups from Power Notes and pop-ups from Lean Library might be overwhelming. Any thoughts on the dueling pop-ups?
Unless there's a really good reason that a user would want to be using both, I would say stick to one, because I agree the pop-ups that was a reoccurring concern. So given that even Lean Library has, and the assist message you have to have, because without the assist messages, then the user doesn't know that, hey, we've got this resource. So obviously, having so many would certainly become frustrating to the user, at least based off of the user experience responses that we got this past spring. So Melissa just asked a question about, can ad block keep them away? We have not run into that personally, or that has not been a complaint from our users. So I do believe that unless you've got a super lockdown system, ad block should not prohibit the assist messages from popping up. And thank you, Marie, for answering Amy's question. Marie is one of our librarians. Does Lean? Oh, sorry. Yeah, Sean,
yeah, no, you saw it. Yeah, I was just making sure we saw it. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm not sure about security setting. When we download it, I don't think we have any issue with a download extension, with any blocking for us to download the library extension.
Correct. So Abby, just for clarification purposes, are you wondering, so I've run into this when I'm trying to download something, UITS has my system kind of locked down, and so I can't download it. If this is what you're referencing, I because it is a web extension and you're adding it to the browser and not like adding it to the hardware of your computer, like you don't have to or I shouldn't say even authenticate, but like say I'm getting an update, I've got to type in my computer, my password for security purposes to approve the download. That's not the case with this extension because it's only going to the web browser. And so you shouldn't run into any of those limitations in the security settings. But I also do know that each institution's UI or IT departments, the security settings and set up are institution by institution. Because I know when I worked at GSU, it was super locked down compared to KSU. So I think it would be a valuable conversation to have with your IT department if you're interested in pursuing Lean Library. Okay, thank you. Marie was able to give a better technology back response.
So Josh was asking if the behavior that you showed on the AJC website happens for just about every newspaper you have access to in ProQuest, or do you have to set something up for each newspaper website you want to show the pop-up on?
Yeah, it's whatever newspaper website you feel people going to access, and you have subscription, which is not on that website, you put on system message.
Mm-hmm. So New York Times, AJC is a big one for us, Marriott Daily Journal. And this was a lot of heavy lifting on our systems side, but yeah. A Washington Post. Trying to think of some of the other big ones that people tend to go to the vendor website first.
Yeah, because like Marietta Daily website, we subscribe Marietta Daily from Newsback. So we put a system message for Marietta Daily too. So direct a user to Newsback instead of go to Marietta Daily.
Right, yeah. Well, we've had some really great questions. I'm glad. I'm glad of the interest.
Yeah, I'm happy too. Yeah.
Well, anybody else?
Yeah, we're hoping to see a significant increase of adoption this upcoming year, because even though 3,500 sounds like a lot, you know, at KSU, we've got over 40,000 students and apparently growing. So we're hoping to see that adoption at least reach into like the 10,000. At least that's my goal personally this year, is to really see that number easily double, if not more.
So that's like Karen's unit will do a lot of work to promote Lean Library.
Oh, Mike White has asked a question about publishing your holdings directly from Alma to Lean Library.
Yeah, holding from one is from there's a two part. The holding we have e-resource from Alma we gave to Lean Library. Another is the database we subscribe. We gave them our database domain.
All right. Well, I think unless another question comes in, that was great. For everyone attending, we will have this recording available. I think as Joy said earlier, we'll have it available by the end of the day. And then, yeah, we'll have all that so you can rewatch, re-listen, all that sort of stuff. Lee and Karen, thank you so much for presenting. Really appreciate it. It was very interesting.
Thank
You're
you.
very welcome.
And y'all have a, oh yeah, go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say, we didn't include this on our presentation, but if anybody has any follow-up questions, please feel free to reach out to Lee and I. Our email addresses are on our library's directory.
Excellent. All right, well, thanks y'all. Everybody take care. We'll see you hopefully at the next presentation at 11 a.m. Bye y'all.
Bye, everybody.